What's going on, everybody? Today is December 18th, 2018. My name is Derek, author and webmaster of Gematrinator.com. And it's good to be back. It's been a few weeks almost since I've run a live stream here. Took a little break. Got my head cleared up a little bit. You know, thought about a lot about what we're doing here on this channel and how to advance it, how to make a little more sense of what we're looking at. And for anybody who's been following my blog over the past several days since I started posting again, you may notice I've kind of shifted my focus over to a few more of the murder by numbers section. And I call it murder by numbers because I do honestly believe at this point that many of these people that we witness, celebrities, athletes, musicians, famous people, are being murdered by a code. I will throw a caveat out there and say there is something called the organic matrix, where people in our own lives appear to be dying by the numbers as well. But the code that we're looking at in, when it comes to these celebrities, it almost goes way deeper than the organic code does. And the real thing that tips me off is the nature of a lot of these murders. For instance, a couple years ago, we had an actor get crushed by his own SUV in his driveway because they said that, there was something wrong with the Jeep. People thought they were leaving it in park when they were leaving it in neutral. Crazy stories like that. And we see this a lot in the mainstream media. But today in particular, we're going to start off by looking at the death of Colin Kroll, a businessman, co-founder of Vine, also a co-founder of HQ Trivia, dying of an apparent overdose at the age of 35. And as this video goes on, I'm going to be talking about some other recent deaths that have occurred by the numbers as well, and primarily ones that are occurring with younger people. And just as a little look at what I've been focusing on lately, well, I tell you what, guys, I forgot to set up a full screen on my OBS software, so I'm just going to wing this here, run a display capture. All right, there we go. So I had a little computer issue a couple weeks ago. My hard drive died on me. Fortunately, I did back up my data a couple weeks prior, so I didn't lose too much. It was just a rare mechanical failure, they told me. And, fortunately, I didn't get charged for the replacement, but what a pain in the butt it was. Anyway, there's this page on Wikipedia called Deaths in 2018. And essentially what I've been doing for the past several days is just looking at the ones of the younger people on these lists, primarily those in the Western culture and Western entertainment culture, so Americans, Europeans, and it's almost like clockwork. So if you see here, since December 12th, I've made 13 posts, and 12 of them have been in the murder by numbers category. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that I really feel as if I'm starting to catch on to more of a formula about what's happening with these deaths. And if they are being murdered, it's good to know exactly how they're doing it and what to look for. So we had a couple big ones recently. Mainly today, actress Penny Marshall dying at age 75. And we'll touch on that death in a little bit. But I did have Colin Kroll highlighted on the front, so we'll start off with that. So when we're talking about numerology and murder by numbers, primarily on this channel, I focus on the language of Gematria, the ancient practice of coding numbers into words. And this is how the ancient Hebrew and Greek languages were built. You may have heard of Hebrew Gematria, Greek isopsephy. Their lettering systems doubled as numbers. So when they wrote a number, they were essentially just writing a word or a set of letters. And it turns out this concept is very alive and well with the current English alphabet. So we're going to take a look at the 4 primary base ciphers. We start off with the alphabetic order in the top left, numbered A through Z, 1 through 26, each letter numbered relative to its position in the alphabetic order. We also have the full reduction method, also called Pythagorean gematria. And this method uses the rules of numerology to reduce each double-digit number to a single digit. You see on the chart how the digits are added together to arrive at a single digit. Both methods can then be reversed. And these reverse ordinal, reverse reduction ciphers are considered complementary to the alphabetic order. As the video goes on, we'll also touch on these large number ciphers. These are actually closer to ancient Hebrew and Greek charts They amplify the numbers 1 through 9. Oh, looks like I got a little work to do on the graphic, guys. Here, let me get the right image here for you. You know, we just had a little computer refresh. We had to set things up a little bit, and you know, a couple hiccups here and there. So here's our English extended method, numbered 1 through 9, and then 10 through 90, and 100 through 800. Finally, we also have the Jewish Gematria cipher. Oh, you're getting to see production live in play here. This is how this is how we do it. And then the Jewish Gematria cipher uses the ancient Latin alphabetic order, with more modern English characters placed at the end. So we'll see how these work together as we go on. So the first thing I want to point out about Colin Kroll is how this is yet another death where the media is reporting two different ages for the same person. Here on Wikipedia, we're being told he was born in 1984, though there's some doubt he may have been born in 1983. Most media outlets were reporting it as age 35 in the news. And if he's really 34, why would they report 35? Certainly someone has to know his birth date. And here we are a day afterwards, 2 days afterwards, and there's still a lot of conflicting information. So why report an age at all if they're not sure? That's the question. Well, here in the language of Gematria, the name Colin Kroll, using the reverse alphabetic order, sums to 149. And this study of numerology, prime numbers are of utmost significance. And 149 is the 35th prime number. And normally the headline would read overdose, but here they cut it short. They say apparent drug OD. Why would they use OD instead of overdose? Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that in this same reverse method, the phrase OD, with the reverse order, O is 12, D is 23, this sums to 35, just like the age at which they're reporting he died at. When we're talking about numerology, we're not just looking at letters and numbers. This language coincides in a very crafty manner with dates on the calendar. This Gregorian calendar was developed by the Jesuits back in the 1600s, and it's these same secret societies that are also using the language of Gematria to code their rituals. As, again, I believe this man was more likely murdered than dying of a simple overdose. So the date he died was December 16th, this past Sunday. And check out how December 16th is the 350th day of the year. We'll touch on a couple more of these numbers as we go. So he was a Vine co-founder. Remember Vine Video from 2013 through 2017? But more recently, he's more famous for the HQ Trivia app. This is also known as Hype Quiz Trivia. Basically a game that you sign on. You jump into a game with people all over the world, and you can advance and ultimately win a big cash prize if you make it all the way to the end. Now, if you check out the Android release date, and I will touch on the iOS release date later as well, but I want to point out that this app releasing on Android on December 31st of 2017, this was exactly 350 days before his death, again, dying on the 350th day of the year. However, what I've really come to find is significant as of late is how you can take someone's name gematria in the alphabetic order, also in reverse, but we'll discuss when we do that later. You take the name gematria in the alphabetic order and convert it to a date. And you find that when you measure from the person's death to that date, you get significant numbers. So here, Colin Kroll summing to 121. If you think about the date, December 1st, you find that he died, again, exactly 350 days before December 1st, the date written 12/1. Colin Kroll in the alphabetic order summing to 121. And this is another significant number when it comes to sacrifice rituals. See how the phrase blood sacrifice equals 121 in that same alphabetic order? Looking a little bit at numerology and connectivity, it seems as if the number 121 is related to the number 1331 through the number 11. And 121 as a square root of 11. This man died on the date December 16th. And when we crack open the extended cipher, we see that this date sums to 1331 in English Gematria, which is 11 cubed. And just to show you that this 11 relationship is not merely coincidental, there's a little bit more to this. When you look more closely at the properties of the number 11, on gematrinator.com there's 3 primary number lists. Fibonacci is significant, but there's just not that many Fibonacci numbers. Really, we're mainly looking at triangulars and primes. Prime numbers, numbers only divisible by 1 and itself. Triangular numbers, this is every number 1 through itself added together. So for the 11th triangular number, you go 1 plus 2 plus 3, all the way through the number 11. And then you get the number 66. The date that he died, December 16th of 2018, we call this full numerology. 12 plus 16 plus 20 plus 18 equals 66, the 11th triangular number. Worth noting, perhaps, that in the reverse reduction method, entrepreneur sums to 66. But whenever we're talking about a death in relation to 66, it's important to understand the revelation riddles. And if you're asking what I'm talking about, think about the language of Gematria and how this is actually rooted in the Bible. The Hebrew Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, written in Hebrew and coded with the numbers. And so when we're talking about the Bible, it's a book of 66 individual books. And Revelation is that 66th book. Notice how the name Colin Kroll in all 4 base ciphers has overlap perfectly with the word revelation. 121, 149, 49, and 59. It's the same 4 numbers with both phrases. The number 66, important in the number of the beast riddle. Revelation 13:18 reveals the number of the beast as 666. Check out how in Gematria, the number of a man equals 66. And let's just pull up this verse for you so you can see what I'm talking about. Revelation 13, here is wisdom. The first sentence of this verse sums to 66 in reduction. Here they mention the number of the beast. The number of the beast equals 66. The number of a man equals 66. All of these phrases, 66 in reduction. And then, of course, the number of the beast is 666. Now, the mainstream media is also participating in this practice of numerology. And I just want to point out what I came across when decoding CNN's headline. Might be a little hard to see if it's small. Here, let me pull this into a bigger window. And this is what the mainstream media does. So here again, we're just using the base ciphers, the reduction methods, the ordinal method that I explained to begin the video. On top, it says co-founder of HQ Trivia and Vine found dead. In both reduction methods, this sums to 180. And in numerology, zeros can be ignored, so this reflects the number 18. Remember, it's Revelation 13:18 that reveals the number of the beast. 18 is, of course, 6 plus 6 plus 6. If you add every number, 1 through 18, you get 171. And if you add up the full gematria of both the headline and the subheadline, you get 1710 in the alphabetic order. "13 is the 6th prime number. Again, it's Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. And just the bottom headline sums to 1341 in the alphabetic order. And 41 is the 13th prime number. So it's very, very clear to see what they're doing here. It's all about the number of the beast, as it seems to be. So let's look again at the gematria of OD. We mentioned how they were reporting that he died at age 35. Colin Kroll summing to 149, the 35th prime number. But if we just use the standard alphabetic order, O the 15th letter, D the 4th, we get the number 19. This apparent overdose happened on a date with 19 numerology, 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 6 plus 1 plus 8. Checking out the properties of 19, we find a prime number relationship of 67. See how the name Kroll equals 67 in the reverse order? 67, the gematria in reduction of the phrase blood sacrifice. And remember, blood sacrifice 121, just like Colin Kroll and Revelation. Now, using the alphabetic order, the name Kroll equals 68. Now, if we take this number and again convert it to a date, like June 8th, written 6/8, notice how he died 6 months, 8 days after 6/8. Earlier I mentioned how his death was related to the release date of HQ Trivia on Android. Well, on iOS, this app was released on August 26th of 2017. And this is 68 weeks before his death. Again, Kroll equals 68, dying 6 months, 8 days after 6/8. If you convert this to just days, just for the record, you get 477, which is the prime number gematria of ritual sacrifice. Now, what about the word overdose? Using the alphabetic order, the word overdose equals 103. And this represents the number 13 in numerology. 103 and 13 seem to be related to ritual human sacrifice. Notice how in reduction gematria, with the S exception, S the 19th letter, and it's the only number that has to be reduced twice to get to a single digit. So single reduction just stops at the 10, as you see in full reduction there. So we get 103 ritual human sacrifice. In Jewish gematria, the number 13 sums to 347, which is the Hebrew gematria of sacrifice. And the reason I think this is really relevant, especially, is because a lot of my work exposes how sacrifices are carried out in relation to solar eclipses. And 347 is the 69th prime number. And the word eclipse in the alphabetic order equals 69. So this all seems to be related. You know, eclipse in reduction equals 33. 33 equals 895 in Jewish gematria, which is the same as ritual human sacrifice, 895. So this code is all related. There's just, there's a lot of numbers to look for, but they're all related, definitely. And, when we talk about this number 13, looking at Vine video, notice how Vine was released in the year 2013. We get a little 13 there. And then look at the date it ended, January 17th. That date is written 1/17. And look at 13 in the reverse alphabetic order. It equals 117. Using the standard alphabetic order, 13 equals 99. And if we measure from that date that Vine was discontinued, 1/17 of 2017 to his death, we get 99 weeks. The phrase ritual sacrifice sums to 154, alphabetic order. Also notice the 73 in reduction. And the reason I bring this up is because, think about the two apps that are associated with this guy, right? Vine and HQ Trivia, 154, 73. As far as the 170 in reverse, the word sacrifice, 170 reverse. Notice how sacrifice has Jewish gematria of 206. HQ Trivia is short for Hype Quiz Trivia, which also sums to 206 ordinal, and a 73 in reverse reduction to boot. From the anniversary of the iOS launch of HQ Trivia to the date of this man's death was 112 days. HQ Trivia equals 112. Now, if you include the end date, that's 113 days. Overdose equaling 113 in that same cipher. So when we talk about murder by numbers, this is exactly what we mean. Looking at guys' birthdays, their dates, the date they died, the dates that are associated with their ordinal gematria. You start measuring and you find just unreal coincidences. And this is all things we were able to find without even knowing this guy's birth date. I mean, I've looked at a few places. I wasn't able to find it. All we know is that he was either 34 or 35 years old. We saw why the 35 is relevant in relation to an OD. But the number 34, we also see this coded occasionally. Murder equals 34. But again, there's a lot of numbers, right? So, and just to show you that, what we're talking about isn't really, or doesn't seem to be a coincidence. These patterns emerge in almost every single celebrity death, particularly those of young people. So another one we'll look at, well, why don't we just get into Penny Marshall, since this is the big one of today? And I probably should have made the topic of this video Penny Marshall, but let's get into it nonetheless. So once again, all we're going to do is punch in the person's ordinal gematria. Punch in their full name and get their ordinal gematria. Now, before I even start, I just want to point out, I haven't really made a whole lot of successful predictions. I have, however, predicted several dates on which we would see big deaths. And today, I figured we would see a death related to the number 13. And a lot of this has to do with the Eclipse Crucifixion Code. But most significantly that I realized was that December 18th, it's the date that leaves 13 days in the year. We just talked about how 13 is related to sacrifice. And the 13th prime number is 41, and December 18th with a life lesson number of 41. So, like I said, someone famous could be eating dirt today, and it's probably a really dishonorable way to say it, but, this is the world we're living in. It's a sick place, so. Anyway, Carol Penny Marshall, this woman's full name. Using the alphabetic order, Carol 54, Penny 74, Marshall 84. So you sum these three numbers together, you get 212. In the reverse alphabetic order, you get 301. And the reverse order is where we get the connections to the number 13. Here you see 103, reverse reduction. And then the reflection, 301, in the reverse order. Well, if you measure to the next date written 3/01, this news came out 10 weeks and 3 days after that date. Now, what I want to point out is that it's being reported that Penny Marshall died yesterday. They're giving us the date of December 17th, 2018. But there's something to be said for someone dying late in the day and having it reported the next day. So I woke up early this morning and did a murder by numbers post, and there was no news yet of Penny Marshall. It hadn't broke yet. And, we found that out as the day went on, that she had died the prior day. But we find that both of the dates that they actually died and then the following date that the news is announced are always significant. So we're gonna mainly talk about the date that it was announced. So here we see she died 10 weeks. Oh, wait, let's say. Let me get my bearings straight here. Here we go. So Carol Penny Marshall, 212, 301 reverse. If you measure to the date written 301, March 1st, you find she died 2 months and 12 days later. So once again, we get an exact alignment with her name gematria and dates on the calendar, 212 to 301. You can also get a different date from this number here, 212. You can actually get 3 dates. So call it playing by numbers if you want, but this remains to be consistent all the time. If you measure from the date December 21st, written 21/2 internationally, to the date that her death made news, it was a span of 301 days. Again, just like her reverse gematria of 301. So, 2 months, 12 days to 301, 301 days to 21/2. Also, look at her birthday. Her birthday was October 15th, 1943. If you measure to her next birthday, in 2019, this news broke 301 days before. Today's date also 10 weeks, 3 days before the next 301, this number that keeps popping up. Her full name in reverse, again, 103. And sorry if I'm going too fast, guys, but, to me this makes a lot of sense. Hopefully this is starting to click with a lot of you guys. Notice how Penny Marshall in the reverse order sums to 193. There's one date that can be written 19/3. That would be March 19th. She died exactly 13 weeks before the next March 19th. And to continue with all this 1331 hoopla, Penny Marshall was best known for her role as Laverne on Laverne and Shirley. Now, this show ended on May 10th, 1983. Measuring from that date to the date she died was a span of exactly 13,006 days. And when we're talking about 13, we're also talking about the 6th prime number. 13,006 days after Laverne and Shirley ends, we see Laverne's life come to an end. So, again, call these coincidences if you want, but we're going to look at more of these, and this continues to prove fruitful. Again, as I mentioned, December 18th, leaving 13 days in the year. Today with a life lesson number of the 13th prime. So earlier I mentioned the 10 weeks and 3 days, tying into the 103 and the 301. This is also 73 days, and 73 is that sacrifice number. And I'm seeing these numbers, 73 and 46, pop up a lot when measuring to these ordinal date gematria, if that makes sense. The phrase ritual sacrifice in reduction, also 73. And it's interesting that we're in the holiday of Saturnalia right now. Saturnalia equals 73. The planet Saturn in the Kabbalah also has 73 gematria. And Penny Marshall's most famous character was Laverne DeFazio. And check out how Laverne DeFazio equals 73. Her death also appears to be related to Cindy Williams, who played Shirley on Laverne and Shirley. Cynthia Jane Williams, summing to 208. And how about this? If you measure from today's news to the date 208, you get 7 weeks and 3 days. $73 is a prime number. That would be the 21st prime number. And notice how today has tiny numerology of 21. 12, 18, 18. Something else that stuck out was that the name Williams equals 118. This is a number that we see associated with death, something to 118 in Jewish gematria, also the word homicide, 118 in that same method. And if you measure from Cindy Williams' birthday to today's news, you get 118 days. Her friend Penny Marshall, dead in the city of Los Angeles, California, which sums to 118. Actually, Los Angeles has a double connection to 118 because it also sums to the 118th prime number in English extended form. Let's take one more look at her name, Laverne DeFazio. This sums to 143 in the alphabetic order. And her show, Laverne and Shirley, it was based in the city of Milwaukee, my home city. Milwaukee sums to 143. Now, there's one date that can be pulled from this number, 143. That would be the 14th of March. And the 14th of March here in the United States is written as 314. 314, like the first three digits of pi, 3.14. And isn't it kind of interesting, at least, that if you measure to the next March 14th, you find it's 2 months and 24 days, just like how 3.14 equals 224? What I failed to note in my post is that 3.14 also sums to 235. Laverne DeFazio, 235, reverse alphabetic order. But there's something else interesting about this duration. 2 months, 24 days. This is also 86 days. This woman's full name, Carol Penny Marshall, equals 86. And remember, 86 is slang for offing or getting rid of. Both blood sacrifice and human sacrifice equals 86. Both of these same phrases sum to 67. In regular reduction, the name Penny Marshall equals 67, reverse reduction, and the date she died, December 17th, had full numerology of 67, 12 plus 17 plus 20 plus 18. You know, they're telling us she died of diabetes. Is this true? You know, this is just what I'm trying to figure out. How does this all work so well? It seems like there's a design to it, but who's designing it? I mean, there's even more you can do here, and I'm hesitant to even talk about more because there's just so many little things you can do, but I think I'm pretty consistent. Alphabetic order, transferring it to a date. Here again, Marshall equals 84, alphabetic order. Her death was 19 weeks and 3 days after 8-4, just like Penny Marshall, 193. So that's probably enough, but, you know, one of my main criticisms when I first started this work was that I was using too many ciphers. Now I've definitely cut down on the extra ciphers, and I'm sticking to a technique that I found is very relevant. So yeah, I hope it's blowing some of your guys' minds here because this is out there stuff, and you know I've tried communicating this to other people. This whole concept of people's name gematria being equivalent to dates on the calendar. You know, it's just saying you got to measure to those dates. There's got to be relevance, and without a doubt, you know, I'm finding way too much consistency to think that this is a coincidence. And if people are being murdered by the numbers, then this must be the code that's going on here. So I should probably do a separate video on Penny Marshall. I think a lot of people are going to be searching for her, so I'll probably do that later tonight. But just scanning through the deaths here, you know, again, today we had, there's a politician. Who cares about those guys? Penny Marshall, big name, 75. Only 54, but this not a famous person, Israeli educator. Here's another one I decoded. Andrei Scherbakov, age 27. This man was a Belarusian footballer. And we're going to talk about how the same thing is in play with this guy. The first thing I want to point out is that while he has this bizarre foreign spelling, his name was Americanized a little bit so that it was spelled Andrei Scherbakov. See how in ordinal this sums to 171 and in reverse you get a 261? Isn't it interesting that they're saying he died in a traffic collision? Notice how traffic collision has the same two values, 171 and 261. So this guy was a football player. He was a goalkeeper, again, for the Belarus national team, also in the Premier League for that nation. Football is a game of 11 on 11, meaning there's always 22 players on the field. The date this man died had reduced numerology of 22 if you add all the individual digits of the date together. And 22 is an interesting number. I will point out that with the Jewish cipher dropped to an ordinal base, ritual human sacrifice equals 202. And this alone might not be significant, but consider that this code is usually centered around total solar eclipses. And using the standard alphabetic order, total solar eclipse equals 202. The date that this man died, December 17th, this was exactly 69 weeks after the most recent total solar eclipse. And again, the word eclipse in the alphabetic order by itself equals 69. If we include the end date, we find that this man died 484 days after that same eclipse. In English gematria, the word footballer equals 484. But what's definitely more interesting when we look at these big number ciphers, we're looking at the gematria of eclipse sacrifice. Notice how eclipse sacrifice equals 398 in Jewish and 448 in English extended. Well, how interesting is it that in Jewish gematria, Belarus equals 398, and then Belarusian equals 448, both of the numbers found in eclipse sacrifice. In reduction gematria, total solar eclipse equals 67. And remember, this is the same gematria as blood sacrifice, 67. Human sacrifice, 67. This code built around eclipses. This guy's first name was Andre. See how Andre sums to 67? He too, just like Penny Marshall. Penny Marshall summing to 67. Both of these people dying on a date with full numerology of 67. Checking out the prime relationship, the 67th prime is 331. This man was killed in a traffic collision in, well, you can read the words and pronounce it in your own head, but this sums to 331 using the standard alphabetic order. And seeing as we're talking about this ritual human sacrifice code, we're going to see how relevant this really is in a minute. Ritual human sacrifice sums to 211 in ordinal gematria. This is the 47th prime number. The date this man died also had standard numerology of 47, 12 plus 17 plus 18. And I should point out that Scherbakov won a Premier League championship in the year 2011, like 211 in numerology. But this is where it gets super interesting. Notice how ritual human sacrifice also has this value of 131 in reverse reduction. This man's full name, Andrei Anatolievich Scherbakov, That's the last time I'm going to say that. His name also sums to 131. And check out his date of birth. January 31st, written 1/31. Now, in Europe, where this man resided, this date would be written 31/1. And using the alphabetic order, his name equals 311. So his name in multiple methods, the most two basic ciphers, summing to the same as his birth date, which in turn has matching gematria with ritual human sacrifice. This even applies in extended gematria, just, this cipher here also relevant. Now in reduction gematria, the name Scherbakov sums to the same two numbers as sacrifice, 46 and 62. The 46th prime number is 199. Measuring from the date that this Belarusian footballer died to Belarus's next Independence Day is a span of 199 days. Now, you might think that's random that I just measured to Belarus's Independence Day. But as I expose in all of my videos regarding fake news and false flags that occur in international territories, when you measure to that nation's Independence Day, also the date that their president took office, you find relevant numbers synced up with that ritual 100% of the time. It never fails. And it's just interesting because not only is this 199 days till their Independence Day, the 46th prime, but look at the date of Belarus's Independence Day. It's July 3rd, written 7/3. How about that? The word sacrifice, 73. Also ritual sacrifice, 73 in reduction. Now, if you instead measure from the date he died to the date of his own next birthday, look at that. It's a span of 46 days. So that's measuring to his birthday, January 31st. Think about how we can also get a different date from 311. Think about November 3rd, the 3rd of November as it would be written in Belarus. Well, November 3rd is a span of exactly 46 weeks after the date he died. And remember, not only does sacrifice equal 46, but in Hebrew gematria, kill and murder both sum to 46. So the sacrifice code, heavily in play with this. I mean, did anyone see this traffic collision? Where's the evidence? If anybody's got it, I'd like to see it. But again, murder by numbers, organic matrix, I don't know for sure, but I have my suspicions. Anyway, talking about this date, November 3rd and 11/3, the date the number that's in his name as well here, 113. Another thing I wanted to point out is that the 113th prime number is 617. And measuring to Belarus's Independence Day once again, you also get 6 months and 17 days. If you think about the date, June 17th, I feel like I'm going in a little bit in circles with this one, guys, but bear with me. If you think about 6/17 as a date, you can also write that date 176. And this man's common name without his middle name equals 176. But also notice how it sums to 283 in the reverse order. He also died 28 weeks and 3 days before Belarus's Independence Day. So it seems like all of these measurements are significant. 199, the 46th prime. 283, just like his name, 283. And then 617, just like his name, equals 176. You see what they're doing here. It's really interesting. All right, so let's just keep scrolling down and look for young deaths. We already saw Colin Kroll. That's how we started the video. Here's a guy who died at the age of 40. And Scott Matka, I did a post on him, so let's look at this. Ah, okay. So for this one, we need to start off talking about the death of Catfish Hunter and then his daughter. The reason we're going to do this is because this hockey player, Scott Matka, died from ALS. And he died from ALS just 2 days after I made a post talking about the death of the daughter of Catfish Hunter. And Catfish Hunter died of ALS. Remember, earlier this year, Stephen Hawking died of ALS on Pi Day, March 14th. So we'll talk a little bit more about how pi was attributed in these deaths. All right, so let's start off with Catfish Hunter. Catfish Hunter, his full name was James Augustus Hunter. And I know I do include the nicknames sometimes with the Gematria, but when I'm doing this new technique, measuring to the date that pops up in the ordinal Gematria, I will only use their full name. So, James Augustus Hunter sums to 263 in the alphabetic order. He died on the date 9/9 of 1999. Seems like a nice date for a numeric ritual, doesn't it? Well, if you measure to the only date that you can write, 26/3, just like his full name's ordinal Gematria, 26/3, measuring to that date gives us 199 days. In the reverse alphabetic order, Catfish Hunter equals 199. And even though Catfish Hunter's career ended in 1979, his number was not retired until 1990. Think about 1990 like the number 199, like Catfish Hunter. And check this out. His jersey was retired on June 9th of 1991. This was exactly 99 months to the day before he died on the date written 9/9, September 9th. Also check out how this is 3,014 days. Remember, pi is 3.14. Stephen Hawking earlier this year dying on Pi Day 314. But let's talk again about the number 199. Remember, Catfish Hunter dying 199 days before the date that we can pull from his full name Gematria. Now, 199, like we mentioned, is a prime number. Again, it's the 46th prime number. The date on which Catfish Hunter died had a life lesson number of 46, 9 plus 9 plus 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9. His real name was Jim Hunter. Jim Hunter equals 46 in reduction, and he was born in the year 1946. Remember, sacrifice equals 46. Also, 73 and 62. The name Catfish Hunter equals 62 and 73. The last name Hunter equals 86, using the alphabetic order. If you measure from the date 8/6 to the date he died, it was 4 weeks and 6 days, giving us yet another 46. But again, the name Hunter summing to 86, remember offing, getting rid of, a restaurant term for throwing out food, you're 86ing someone. Blood sacrifice, 86. Human sacrifice, 86. And he died, remember, in relation to the 86th day of the year, March 26th, 326 or 26/3, just like his name. You know, I don't really envy anybody new watching this video. This is kind of complicated, but I really hope that, again, this is clicking with a lot of you guys because to me, this is just overwhelming evidence that something really weird is happening. And you know, really, in my opinion, really, it's one of two things. Either we are living in this giant organic matrix where somehow we are all dying in relation to this code of letters and numbers and dates on the calendar, and maybe we're vulnerable on certain dates, and maybe there's other dates where we're more susceptible to success. Or this goes really, really deep, and I don't know if the rabbit hole would get any deeper. Because if you talk about people being murdered by the numbers when they had a disease like diabetes or ALS, well, that means something's going on in the medical industry. And are we really here to believe that the medical industry is murdering people like that? Is that possible? I really hope the rabbit hole doesn't go that deep. But, this kind of stuff is worth bringing into the light and getting to the bottom of, because the fact that this information has been censored in the past, is a little revealing of, and worrisome of what the truth might really be. But let's just continue for now. Just looking one more time at the gematria of Catfish Hunter. Catfish Hunter in the alphabetic order equals 152. And there's one date we can pull from 152. That would be February 15th or 15/2. And what's interesting about this is that if you measure from that date in 1999 to the date of his death, it was 206 days. And we already saw how the gematria of sacrifice played out through this man's name. Remember, in Jewish gematria, sacrifice equals 206 here as well. The phrase ritual sacrifice equals 154. Catfish Hunter, born on the date April 8th. This means he died 154 days after his birthday. So a lot of coincidences here. Really makes you wonder what this Lou Gehrig's disease really is all about, hey? So then earlier this week, or last week, we had the death of Kim Hunter Doherty. This is the daughter of Catfish Hunter. This woman was 45 years old, and she was a 5th grade teacher at a school down in North Carolina. Well, they had a fire drill at the school. When the fire drill ended, they found this woman had died of a heart attack. And the first thing that stuck out about this is how the name Kim Hunter Doherty equals 93 in reduction. The name Kimberly Doherty, which would be her common name now, sums to 93 in reverse reduction. And this woman died during a fire drill, which sums to 93 in the alphabetic order. And remember, Hunter's father passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease. I found it interesting that Lou Gehrig himself, who died in 1941, it turns out he died 930 months before Kim Hunter Doherty died during a fire drill. When we look at the Kabbalah, we see that the word murder equals 93. The word time summing to 93. The calendar, a keeper of time. And, of course, so is Saturn. Saturn equals 93 using the standard alphabetic order. And in the Kabbalah, Saturn equals 73, which is one of those sacrifice numbers, 73. Looking back at the death of Catfish Hunter, he died exactly 93 weeks before the next total solar eclipse. And that was the eclipse that occurred on the summer solstice in 2001, the same year as the greatest terror attack in U.S. history. If we measure from Catfish Hunter's birthday on April 8th to the date of the death of his daughter, we find it's a span of 250 days. The name James Augustus Hunter, Catfish's full name, equals 250. And, it's interesting because he died of Lou Gehrig's disease. Lou Gehrig's birth name was Heinrich Gehrig, which also sums to 250. And when we're talking about 25, we're talking about pi rituals. Pi equals 25. Kim Hunter dead on a date with 25 numerology, December 13th, 12 plus 13. The date also had tiny numerology of 16, and pi in reduction equals 16. Remember that 314 we saw with Catfish Hunter and his Jersey retirement? So then what are the odds that just a couple days later we get another celebrity athlete, not a big name of course, just a minor league hockey player, but a longtime player of the Grand Rapids Griffins in Michigan. And this guy dies of ALS during the same week. So remember Catfish Hunter and all the 46s, right? Born in the year 46, died on a date with 46 numerology. Catfish Hunter equals 199, the 46th prime. Well, now, this man, Scott Matka, he died on a date with standard numerology of 46, 12 plus 16 plus 18. Remember 46, the sacrifice number? This man played his career, or the bulk of it, in the state of Michigan, which equals 46. Remember Catfish Hunter's regular name, Jim Hunter, summing to 46. Again, the 46 prime number, 199. This man played his career for the Grand Rapids Griffins, which sums to 199, and 314, which we'll touch on. But remember 199, just like Catfish Hunter, whose daughter just died this week. Notice how the name Matka equals 72 in the alphabetic order. The next total solar eclipse is on the date 7/2 of 2019. And including the end date, that's 199 days away. In reverse reduction, the name Scott Matka equals 67. Remember this found in total solar eclipse, blood sacrifice, human sacrifice. But what's especially interesting here is, once again, the prime number relationship, 331. The full name of ALS is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which sums to 331 in the alphabetic order. So how interesting is it that this guy dies of this disease when his name equals 67? Touching up again on the gematria of Grand Rapids Griffins, 314 in reverse ordinal. Again, 314, the first three digits of pi. Pi summing to 25, just like Catfish Hunter's full name. Also notice how you get 29 in the reverse alphabetic order. This man, Scott Matka, was born in Port Huron, Michigan, which sums to 250 and 209. Gematria which syncs up in numerology with the word pi. Again, remember how Stephen Hawking died of Lou Gehrig's disease on 3/14, but the news was announced on 3/13 here in the United States. Well, Matka died a span of 31 weeks and 3 days after his birthday. This man was born on May 11th. And you know, it's maybe worth pointing out, I think the 16th was the first day of Saturnalia. And this man was born on 5/11, which is the Jewish gematria of Saturn, 5/11. Well, anyway, this number 313 is also significant for another reason. In the King James Bible, the number of the beast is written as 300, or 600, 6. Been a while since I typed that out, I guess. So we get 313 in the alphabetic order. And, of course, this is 666. Grand Rapids equals 666. The date this man died had full numerology of 66, just like how Colin Kroll died on a date with 66 numerology when we kicked off this video. Remember, the 66th book of the Bible is Revelation, which reveals the number of the beast. And check it out. Here we go again. Revelation equals 149. Scott Matka equals 149. And remember, this same day, the death of Colin Kroll was in the news. And Colin Kroll has matching gematria in all 4 base methods as Revelation. Remember this 66? Here is wisdom, 66. Number of the beast, 66. The number of a man, 66. And the book of Revelation culminates with the second coming of Jesus. And how interesting is it that Jesus equals 985? The name Scott Matka equals 985. In fact, if you want to push it further in that same cipher, Jesus the Messiah equals 1331. This man died on December 16th, which equals 1331. And remember, 1331 is the number that represents a solar eclipse. Just do a quick Google search. Huge 1331 discovery. You'll come across my post where I talk about the 1331 eclipse on November 30th, which is the only date that sums to 1331. So, somehow, even with a minor league hockey player, this eclipse crucifixion code seems to be in play. And, all right, guys, let's do one more. Jessica Starr. This was a big one. So here we had a meteorologist committing suicide at the young age of 35, a TV anchor. Came as a big shock to the community. One thing I want to point out about this is that they kind of made it seem like she was depressed, right? But really, it just seemed like she was talking about her recovery from LASIK surgery. Like they tweeted something. I don't know if they're going to... Yeah, it's not on here anymore, but one of these articles had a tweet, and it made it sound like she was battling depression or something. But I think she was just talking about her LASIK eye surgery that she wasn't having a good time recovering from. So either way, this thing was entirely by the numbers, and we're going to talk about how. So let's start out with the name Jessica Starr. In reduction with the S exception, the name Jessica Starr equals 70. This woman was a meteorologist. Meteorologist equals 70 in reverse reduction. And it said that she's committed suicide, which sums to 70 as well. Now, this woman worked for Fox 2 WJBK in Detroit. This woman died on the date December 12th. Fox 2 Detroit first aired on October 24th, 1948. And look how old they were on this date. The TV station she worked for was exactly 70 years, 7 weeks, and 0 days old. Jessica Starr, the meteorologist committing suicide. It's a damn near perfect alignment. Now, it's said that she's dead at the age of 35. Interesting, because 35 times 2 is 70, the number that seems to be integral to this ritual. This was a weather girl. Weather equals 35 in reduction. And the date she died, 12 plus 12 plus 2 plus 1 plus 8, equals 35. This date also had numerology of 62, 12 plus 12 plus 20 plus 18. 62 is one of those numbers we find in the Gematria of sacrifice, 62. This woman worked for WJBK, which equals 62 in reverse ordinal. Also notice how this call sign sums to 46, just like sacrifice. The date she died also had reduced numerology of 17, which is the Gematria of kill. But where this really gets interesting, once again, is when you look at the calendar alignments with her full name. So actually, I don't have her full name. All we can find is Jessica Starr, but we'll definitely see how this applies. So if you measure from this woman's death to the next total solar eclipse, we find that it's exactly 202 days. Total solar eclipse equals 202, alphabetic order. There's a cipher called Sumerian Gematria, which is based on the alphabetic order but multiplies it by 6. There's a myth or a story or a rumor, I suppose, that the Sumerians discovered time. Perhaps that's why this cipher multiplies by 6, because 6 is a number of time, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and so on. Well, anyway, total solar eclipse in this method equals 1212. And how interesting is it that 1212, December 12th, was 202 days before the next total solar eclipse, which equals 202, right? And think about this woman's name, Jessica Starr. Guys, what's a solar eclipse? It's when the moon covers up the nearest star. And are you kidding me? This woman's name is Starr on this date? Let's look at this more closely. The name Jessica Starr. Using the alphabetic order, this sums to 142. What does the phrase eclipse sacrifice sum to? That's right, 142. Did she really commit suicide, or was she suicided? Which sums to 142. The number 42, when spelled out, equals 142, which makes the fact that the date she died having standard numerology of 42 seems a little significant. But again, if we look at her name gematria of 142, there's only one date that can be extracted from this number. That would be February 14th, or 14/2. And measuring from February 14th to the date that this woman died was exactly 43 weeks. And in reduction, Jessica Starr equals 43. Using the S exception, so does the word suicide. And this suicide made news the next day on the 13th, which was a date with 43 numerology. The word killing, by the way, also has that 43 gematria. If we measure instead to the date of her death from the last, most recent total solar eclipse, notice how she died 113 days after the anniversary of that date. And I point this out because Detroit, Michigan, when abbreviated, equals 113. This is where she was a TV anchor. In extended gematria, Detroit, Michigan equals 617, the 113th prime number. I find the gematria of Fox 2 a little worrying in this case as well. Fox 2 equaling 38 in the reverse order. 38, our primary murder by numbers number, death, murder, killing, all summing to 38. Even the movie Murder by Numbers, they flashed us a little 38 there in the movie poster. The word suicided also summing to 38. Now, using the standard alphabetic order, Fox 2 equals 47. The word suicide equals 47 in the reverse method, so does suicided with the S exception. With the K exception, the word killing also 47. So what are the odds that a woman with the name Starr commits suicide on a date that's so perfectly aligned with the next total solar eclipse, and her name equals the same as eclipse sacrifice? So I don't know, guys. I mean, I took a little break, and yeah, I mean, I realized that we're really catching on to something with this murder by numbers code. And what I've found too is that my blog posts, when I do murder by numbers stories, get a lot more hits. So that tells me that a lot more people are finding the work that way. And let me just show you something that I kind of find interesting. When I look at my blog stats, I want to know why I cannot trust my blog statistics in the least, and you'll see why. Somehow I got logged out of my blog. Ay, ay, ay. All right, so when I go to statistics, now you may recall, if you've been a subscriber of my channel for several months, there was a period earlier in the summer where my live streams and podcasts kept getting cut. I was losing internet in the middle of the stream and had to split it into two different videos. Man, these hits are really going up. Dang. And so I ended up making a video after this happened like 6 or 7 times. I made a video where I just complained about it. And because I was pretty upset, it gets a little annoying after a while. And so shortly after that, my internet worked fine. I was no longer getting cut off in the middle of my streams. Everything was cool. Around that same time, I also complained to my web server because what was happening is that people were getting all these 404 errors. They're trying to get to the blog, and for whatever reason, it was going out. And it would take me forever to post because just to upload a file, it would take me like a minute just for a little image. And finally, I complained again, and I just kept going up the ladder. And they finally upgraded my service for me. Well, on the same date they upgraded my service for my website, my blog hits increased by 4 times. So what the hell is going on here? I was apparently like in one tier of content creator with this web server. It doesn't make any sense. And then overnight, my blog goes up by 4x, and then it remains there until this very day, basically. So it doesn't make any sense at all to me how these statistics work. I don't think we can trust any of our views, any of our stats, any of our statistics on any of these platforms, because this is the kind of shit that we always see happen. It's pretty fucking annoying. Excuse the French. Well, the Anglo-Saxon, if you want to be technical about it. But I mean, even though I don't feel like I can trust these numbers, I do like to see the increase in numbers, because even if they are suppressing this, maybe it's based on a formula that's based in reality anyway. So to get 815 visitors on my blog, I'm pretty sure this is a record. I don't even know how I got 710 yesterday. But this is definitely increasing over time. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I was just getting 500 up through a couple days ago. And then today it really spiked. I wonder if that's my post on Penny Marshall. Nope. 39 on Penny Marshall. I got a lot on Colin Kroll. It's good to see this happen, though. I mean, I was getting consistently like 30, 40, 50 blog posts for a while earlier this year, or views per post. And now I'm seeing many of these jump over, well into the hundreds, quite regularly and quickly. So, I took a little break for a while, and I thought a little bit about what I was doing and whether or not I was going a little too far with it. You guys had seen a couple of the videos I made recently about stuff that had happened in my own life by the numbers. And every time that happens, especially when someone dies by the numbers in your life, it just kind of causes you to take a step back and just reevaluate what's going on. And, I was one of the first ones on the conspiracy bandwagon, and I'm still on that bandwagon. I wouldn't be working so hard to expose this stuff if I didn't think that there was an elite class of people aware of this knowledge that were kind of using it to help control our minds a little bit. That's definitely in play here. And worst case scenario, they're killing people by the numbers. And my concern is that it's not just celebrities, athletes, musicians. It might be people that are in our communities as well. And I say that for many reasons, including the fact that my cousin seems to have died by the Eclipse Crucifixion Code back in 2004. So I don't know exactly what we're dealing with, everybody, but I feel like we're getting a little bit closer to the truth. We're getting a little bit closer to the formula that's being used to remove these people from society. Whether or not they're really dying, moving to an island, I don't know. I mean, I don't see any evidence that they're not dying. So, as far as I know, most of these people are. So, everybody, that's probably going to do it. I'm going to start to wrap this video up. Going forward, again, I am going to focus a little bit more on the murder by numbers. You may have seen on my blog, I put that category on top now. I'm also going to start trying to focus on doing shorter videos, 5 to 10 minutes, discussing this formula, dates on the calendar, ordinal name gematria, how this all measures up. And then what I'm probably going to do is do maybe 1 or 2 live streams a week where I can jump in the chat. I didn't really look at the chat at all today, so I apologize for that. And how funny is this? We're talking about how we can't even look at stats and trust anything. I like how my analytics won't show me how many viewers are watching the stream right now. This has never been... it never didn't work before. So now I see there's 42, maybe max at one time. Not too shabby for someone who's been away for a while, right? So yeah, I'm going to mix it up a little bit more. I'm going to try and make more videos so that more people have a chance to see them. Of course, people aren't going to want to sit through my hour-long videos if they're just coming across this for the first time as often. So I'm definitely going to be doing that, and then making a little more time for everybody who's subscribed on YouTube. There could be a Patreon thing in the near future as well, since I do get plenty of questions that I think, I don't know, I don't want to look at Patreon yet. I got a job. Everything's fine for me. I want this information to be free and everything. It's just, I don't know. That's been one of the thoughts on my mind. Why aren't I monetizing something like this? Like, I got a house to pay for. I got... That's pretty much it. I got a house to pay for. But that's a lot. So yeah, I hope none of y'all missed me too much. I definitely am back in the saddle again. And yeah, I am on PayPal, by the way. There's a donate link in the bottom of the calculator. I don't really make a big deal out of it. People do filter in some money once in a while. Ultimately, I think, the server that I pay to host the site, ultimately that's been paid for, and then maybe a little bit extra with donations, so I don't really complain about it. And some people, like one guy in the chat here, he says, jobs, no Patreon. Well, why do you have against Patreon? If people are offering useful information that other people find valuable and want to pay for, then why shouldn't they be able to use Patreon? Why are people against it, is what I want to know. And think about how much more content I could create if I didn't have a job, right? I mean, I'm spending 6 to 8 hours a day working my ass off on a computer, and then I'm working my ass off again on a computer here doing this work and making videos and doing all that. Like, this is a large chunk of time, and the fact of the matter is I won't be contributing quite as much downtime to this as I was before, but I'm going to be a little bit more focused. So again, I'm not going to be decoding as many stupid random news by the numbers stories. You might not get a history by the numbers once or twice a week like you were, but I'm going to be a little bit more consistent, creating tweets with each post, and then a video to go along with it, and then like a weekly podcast at the end to discuss and have everyone else chime in. All right, so thanks to everybody who contributed in the chat. I love each and every one of you. God bless you all. Hope you're having a great time out there. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks for watching, everybody, and adios.